you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits. That's right, man. Tell 'em. Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits.
So I have a question for you.
What?
Would you fight,
Yes.
would you box Floyd Mayweather for $100 million? Of
course.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know many people who wouldn't.
Yeah, who wouldn't? Well, I guess it depends on what the parameters are. Like, what if you had to do 12 rounds? Otherwise, you don't
But
get
you can't. I mean, no one, unless he chose to just punish you.
Yeah, so
for those
is it
12
worth
rounds.
it? Is it worth getting punished for 12 rounds? Brain damage,
Well, that's a separate
potential,
story.
or
No,
just.
nothing like that. Just a fight and whatever happens.
But then you're going to get
happens.
knocked out. So is it
There
really
you
worth
go.
it to take it?
To get knocked out? For
No, but you don't
$100
get the money
million?
unless you go 12 rounds.
Oh, well, that's a completely different.
Okay, well,
We're just talking about straight up. You just fight.
Well, sure, yeah,
Box
absolutely.
Floyd Mayweather. Whatever
Absolutely.
happens, and you're paid $100 million. So all you
I'll
got to do is
fight.
basically not die or get brain damage,
Pretty much, yeah.
right? And you probably don't. You could just first little contact.
Can you flop? That's not
Yeah,
really
basically,
fair.
if you get hurt, like not really. Just
No,
if
I mean
you
like
get hit,
flop. Like you go in first shot, you just drop.
go. Yeah, I guess. I mean, within reason. Like if he hits you, you could go down. And
Yeah.
that's it. So that's it. I would
Sure.
definitely do
Yeah,
it.
I'd fight pretty much anyone for $100 million.
Yeah.
As long as I knew they were going to stop hitting me once I was incapacitated.
Well, there's a ref there, and it's all within reason. It's,
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Well, obviously you're asking this, I guess, for anybody who's unclear. If you have been living under a rock for the last week, it's been announced that Conor McGregor, the most famous, most popular MMA fighter right now, will be fighting Floyd Mayweather, who's arguably the best boxer of our generation and without a doubt one of the best boxers of all time. It's going to be the biggest fight, one of the biggest fights of all time. The
ridiculous.
financials are insane. I think it's something like Mayweather's making somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million, give or take. Conor's making in the neighborhood of $100 million. They're projecting. I've heard projections of as much as like 4 or 5 million pay-per-view buys. Everyone's talking about it. Everybody I know is talking about it. People who don't care much for boxing or MMA are talking about it. So it's a big deal. It's going to be a big fight, but it's a farce. It's just a farce with a lot of money involved.
Would you tune in to watch Tom Brady go against LeBron James
In a basketball
match? Yeah.
No.
Would you pay to watch Kevin Durant hit against Clayton Kershaw?
No.
So,
So it's essentially the same thing. I think it's bad for both sports. To me, it's bad for boxing because I think it's a farce to begin with. It's gonna be the biggest fight ever, and Mayweather's fighting a guy who's not a boxer, who's an amateur boxer, and if on that off chance that he loses. It's like, for him, it's fine. Okay, he's going to make a ton of money. But for the sport, on that off chance he loses, it essentially erases boxing as a legit combat sport.
Yeah,
If the best MMA fighter, or arguably the best MMA fighter at that weight, comes into boxing and wins, I mean, again, that's like Tom Brady going into the NBA and winning a championship as the lead player. Like, it just erases boxing.
Yeah.
And for all the history and the skill that's involved. And then for Conor McGregor, what's likely to happen is he's going to look bad. Mayweather's light years ahead of him as far as boxing skill. That's the case. They're two different sports. And
there's better amateur boxers.
Conor was apparently an accomplished amateur boxer.
All right, that's
but
right. I guess he
the
was.
difference between
not a
amateur boxing,
professional
even
boxer.
at the highest levels, and Floyd Mayweather is, again, it's like boxing with a child. So what's the problem is for me, why I think this is bad for MMA is we're big fans of MMA. So we realize that the sport's evolved, that they're really great athletes, that they're highly skilled. It's just that the number of skills they need are such that they're never going to be equal to somebody whose only job is to punch. You know, if you're Conor McGregor as an MMA fighter, you're punching, you're kicking, you're kneeing, you're elbowing, you're grappling, you're clinching, you're wrestling. He has so many skills he has to learn that he'll never be as good with his punching and his footwork as Floyd Mayweather is, who's been boxing since he was a child. And those are the only skills he needs. I'm generalizing it to an extent, but he's got to be able to punch. He's got to be able to move his head. He's got to be able to move his feet.
And not to also mention the fact that it's a different sport.
It's a different sport. It's just
the timing
different
is different.
scoring.
It's just a different.
He's in
system.
a ring. It's different. So McGregor's boxing skills are going to look bad against Mayweather. They just are. And I'll eat my words if I'm wrong, but he's not going to look good in this fight. So to the hardcore fans, we know Conor's got balls. He's taking a new sport. To an extent, again, we talked about it. For $100 million, it doesn't take much balls to do it. But he's going into another sport that's not his, and he, putting his reputation on the line. Not to us.
So. I think it only makes Conor look. He had the balls to go in. So, but I'm not. But and do that.
Disregarding like the hardcore fans. Or
I don't even
fans.
think the hardcore fans. I think anyone could respect it. Saying he went into a sport that he's
a casual fan or you're a boxing fan, you're gonna see Mayweather rip him apart, and you're going to see Conor look bad. Again, I'll eat my words wrong.
But they're expecting that to happen.
No.
Everyone's expecting
absolutely
Mayweather.
Absolutely not. You're wrong. So let me I'll finish my point, and then I'm going to address that.
That would just be...
So I'm going to finish my point, and then I'm going to address that, because I think you're wrong. So he's going to look bad, and then by extension, people are going to say, wow, look at how amateurish MMA fighters are. That's terrible. Look at this. You got a pure boxer, and look at how skilled and talented he is. And then this barbaric MMA fighter, that's terrible. So people are going to look bad. MMA will look bad, even though we won't see that.
I think
if
you're
not a fan, you are not past that at all. If you're not a fan of MMA, or if you're a casual fan, if you're not a big fan, you're going to see a huge disparity in skill.
Of course, but it's the same thing when James Toney fought Randy Couture.
Yeah, but it was not nearly as highly publicized.
Of course not, but it's basically the same thing.
It was absolutely, you're right, but no one cared about that. Now, what was the second point you said? Oh, I've had so many people. So obviously, people know that I do some boxing and I do Muay Thai. And I'm into MMA. So everybody I know, and I train and teach classes with lots of people. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I've had every day I have multiple people talk to me about the fight. And unless they really know fighting and they know boxing or they really know MMA, every one of them is like, yeah, well, I mean, they've bought in because the whole narrative is, well, Mayweather's the greatest boxer alive, but Conor's younger, he's stronger, he's bigger, he's faster, he's got power. So
that might help him survive a round
but people have bought into that. So people that I talk to think that Conor has a legitimate chance because he's younger, bigger, stronger, blah blah blah. So I just think you're wrong.
Survive a little bit.
Yeah, of course, it might help him survive, but I think you're thinking like somebody who knows the sport more than the average person, where the average person is giving Conor a legitimate chance. Now, again, for them to make money, it makes sense. Mayweather's going to give him a chance. His people are going to give him a chance. The media's got to give him a chance because there's a lot of money at stake. But at the end of the day, and well, I should say, and people are buying into that. So I do think you're wrong that most people, the average person who doesn't know much about the sports, they're kind of seeing it as, oh, well, Conor's got a chance. Yeah, he is younger. He is bigger. And meanwhile, it's just not true.
Do you think that remember we talked about a fix, that you're like, there's no way that Mayweather will go down on a fix to lose. But what if he fixed it in this way? He allowed it to be competitive and made it like a good fight so that they could have a rematch. And Conor still loses, but they have a rematch for even more money. Saying it was a close fight. Okay, like maybe Conor knocks him down a couple times.
Here's why I don't. I see it
so that they could have a rematch.
We were talking about
more
this.
Money.
So we were saying like, what if it was a fix? What if because obviously the odds are so stacked in Mayweather's favor that if he were to fix it and he puts a couple $1 million through whatever nefarious sources, and I have obviously there's no hints that he would do this, but if he were to do that, he could make millions upon millions of dollars.
But which he already is.
Yeah, he is, but he could even make even more, right? But the problem is he's undefeated, and I think that is huge for him, for his legacy and for him as a fighter. That's also why he's taking this fight. He retired, but this is an easy fight for him. Yeah. So to get his 50th win and remain undefeated, I think that's more important than any money. That part of his legacy is more important. Now, where I don't. It's not smart for him to make it competitive, even for a rematch.
No, if Conor's in on it.
Conor is powerful. So
no, if Conor's in on it too, they're both in on it. They're like, let's make it competitive.
I guess, but I mean, yeah, but there's always that little chance that Conor says, well, let me take that one opening. I don't think that would happen. I mean, there's no reason to believe that. So for us to speculate on that is more, it's just us speculating. What if? But there's no reason to believe that. Neither person has ever been accused of fixing a fight or anything like that. But I think that for Mayweather, he wants to embarrass him and make him, show, hey, look, there's a difference between a boxer and an MMA fighter. And his kind of the wrong view is that MMA fighters are just these kind of barroom brawlers.
I think he's
where
just
they're
saying that.
highly
I think
skilled.
Mayweather knows, because if he knew,
Well, he must know, but he knows that he's not near his level of boxing.
Yeah, and that's and
Otherwise he would
Mayweather
take
won't
a
go into MMA. So
Oh, of course not. No, he would never do it. That's the thing. Yeah, so if we saw it the other way around, like if they did each other's sports, that we'd see just the way I'm talking about Mayweather making Conor look silly. If Mayweather tried MMA, Conor would do the same thing to him.
Yeah.
So where I think no amount of training is going to get Conor anywhere near Mayweather's level as a boxer, no amount of MMA training will get Mayweather near Conor's level as an MMA fighter. It's
especially
just
not at his age.
At his, they're just two completely different sports. And again, it's closer, but it's not too far. Again, from our examples, like if Tom Brady, plays LeBron James, or if Aaron Judd became the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals or something. It's like none of, they're just different sports, different skills. Maybe it would be a little bit closer to like an NFL running back going to play rugby or going to play rugby or something like that.
Well, there has been some crossover.
Where there's some
crossover. There's a couple rugby players that have done well, but they're mostly in like running back type positions, and a few kickers.
And none of them have made the transition.
There's one guy that was like,
a
couple that was successful,
right.
but they also had to learn.
You take a running back and make him a sprinter, or something like that. Yeah, it's like it just there's skills that don't. There are some similar skills, but Mayweather's going to be so far ahead of him as a boxer that I don't see how it's competitive. Anyway, I'll get off my my soapbox, and we'll wait and see. I will be on a flight. I think I told you that I'll be flying when that fight's happening, so I'm actually going to miss. I'll miss the whole fight.
Maybe it'll be on the. It'll be so big it'll be on the plane.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it could be. So I'll miss it anyway. But I'm sure when I land, I will find out that Mayweather not embarrassed him, but I
guess that's why they fight. You never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
All right. So what do we have on tap for today?
We have an interview with Laurie Cossar.
Yeah, and she is a nutritionist, health coach, all-around fitness expert. And she's going to talk to us. We're going to get into everything from fitness training to nutrition to mindset stuff. It's a lot of stuff on tap. She's really intelligent, experienced fitness professional. And without further ado, let's get to our interview.
Hey everyone, we are here with Laurie Cossar. She is a nutritionist and a health coach, and soon to be an author as well. Hey Laurie, how's everything?
It's great today. How are you guys doing?
Very well. Thank you for coming on the GymWits. So the first thing we always ask is to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in fitness and athletics.
Sure. I've been involved in the health and fitness industry for just a little over 25 years. Wow. Always been interested in personal health and fitness, but kind of made the shift of full-time career, I guess almost 25 years ago, and been an athlete most of my life and really interested in nutrition. But I also struggled with my weight for a good long portion of that time. So I've really embodied the knowledge side of it and put it to practice in my own life, and very passionate about it, and still, even after 25 years, it's still sort of in the forefront of my my daily activities. So
wonderful. Now, in one sentence, how would you describe your philosophy of fitness?
Fitness in one sentence.
One sentence.
My philosophy of fitness.
Or briefly, in a little phrase or whatever works for you.
Do what makes you feel good.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think it's critically important that to do something that makes you feel good certainly is going to give you more motivation to go, or rather, you don't need that impetus. The impetus is it's something you enjoy doing, so you look forward to it rather than something that's a grind.
That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the fitness industry, a bit about your start, your education, kind of background?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I was a soccer player, and throughout my childhood and early teens, right up to varsity level. And I was always in shape because we played literally year round and trained really hard all the time. And so that pretty much encompassed a good portion of the younger part of my life. And And then in my early 20s, I hung up my boots and I kind of like became a bit sedentary. Kind of went more the party route and got married and had a family and realized that without the fitness aspect of my life, my weight would spiral out of control. And I just didn't feel as good. So I got back into it in my early 30s and, just started working out in the gym and still struggled with my weight. So I actually decided to become a personal trainer so that I could really appreciate and understand more about how exercise impacted the body and certainly how it impacted how it influenced our weight. So I became a certified personal trainer in Canada in, I'm going to say 1998, and began a practice of training people at a wellness center that I had opened in the Turks and Caicos Islands in the Caribbean. So I built my own little gym in a guest house on our property in this beautiful tropical island. And I primarily did one-on-one training with clients. I've never done any class work, so to speak. I did a bit of some spinning classes. I've always loved the bike. Sports-wise, I have never taken soccer back up until recently, but I did the triathlete route for a while and really enjoyed that, but found that the training, requires a lot of commitment. So I don't do that anymore. I primarily now my level of fitness, I don't train people anymore. I've moved into teaching Qigong and Tai Chi. So sort of a more integrative space of body movement that focuses kind of encompassing mind, body, and spirit. Physically, my own workouts still consist of, I do some high intensity training now, and I still ride my bike, do a lot of yoga and hiking, and I do pretty much what I really makes me feel good. That's kind of where I'm at too. So I'm not in the gym anymore, but I find that most of my activities are kind of in concert with something else that I'm working on in my life. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Good. So I guess tell me a little bit about your website and what you offer through that.
Okay, so that's actually something that's fairly new. Mm-hmm. For the last 10 years, the primary work that I've been doing has been through Tony Robbins' Life Mastery program. So Tony's a high performance coach in the U.S. and his wellness program is called Life Mastery. And I oversee the nutrition program on that program. And what I do is we put the participants through a juice cleanse when they come in. They spend 9 days with us, and they, in addition to Tony's work, they also get introduced to a great number of experts in the health field. And it could be something involving fitness or body movement, different types of, there's some spiritual aspects to it and psychology, and then as well as different nutrition experts that talk about all the different various approaches to diet. So that's kind of taken up a big part of what I've done in the last 10 years. And it's just been recently that I've always done minimal coaching, one-on-one coaching in between these programs. And I'm starting to grow that a little bit more. I don't actually advertise that on my website because most of my clients have come really through word of mouth or referral. And I haven't really grown that brand or platform. Okay. But with the book writing, I kind of needed a platform in which to launch that from. So I've built the website, and I've just started doing some blogging, and now I'm doing some of these podcast interviews, which I think is a really wonderful way to help people get information about a whole wide range of approaches and philosophies. So that's kind of where I'm at with the website.
Oh, that's fantastic. Ryan and I discussed recently the integration of fitness, wellness, nutrition, and the whole self-help field and how they sort of they really work together. And of course, you mentioned that you are working with Tony Robbins, who is one of the pioneers of that industry. What do you think about the coming together of those two fields? It makes perfect sense, but now we're really starting to see it, and especially starting to see it even more in the corporate world as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that one is complementary to the other. I don't think they're exclusive. Um, I know that a lot of people that aren't interested in fitness come to fitness as a means to lose weight. And I think, as you understand nutrition, you can't outrun a bad diet. And so you can't just use exercise in isolation without really cleaning up what you're eating as well in order to get the results that people, I think, are seeking. And it's the same, it's that I think people are really starting to focus not just on looking a certain way, but also feeling a certain way. And that it's as much about health as it is about having a six pack or looking, being sculpted or toned. And that they really have to complement one another, because you can't have the results that you're looking for if you don't integrate both protocols. If that makes sense to you guys, which I think it probably does.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Now, what is your background in nutrition?
Well, I started studying sort of as a hobby back maybe, I'm going to say 25 years ago. And as I said, I had struggled with my own weight and really had been on a lot of different diets. I went through my 20s, kind of packed up my fitness life for a while, and really became committed to family, and my own self-care priority kind of diminished a little bit. And I saw how quickly my body changed when I stopped working out and really taking care of myself. So I started seeing a nutritionist myself after having not had sustainable results with different diets. I thought, I'm going to see a nutritionist and see if this approach works better. And this particular nutritionist resonated really well with me, and she taught me a lot of things that the dieting world doesn't teach you, about biochemistry and really about understanding macronutrients, micronutrients. And so I kind of took an interest in it in a bigger way, and decided to kind of embark on I did a 3-year program to become a registered holistic nutritionist, and I was working as well at the same time. So I did this in my off hours, and it took me, I guess, just over the course of 3 years. And I really did it primarily as my own kind of personal development, but I just really got so passionate about it, and I could see how much our diet can really impact and change our whole health profile, and also our body composition, help with weight management, hormonally, on so many different levels. So after studying it for a number of years, I opened a wellness center in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and by that time I had become certified as personal trainer. So I kind of co-joined those two things, and while I was working out with people, I could talk to them about their nutrition while they were pumping out a few reps. So it became a really wonderful complementary way of working with a client. They'd get both the nutrition and the fitness aspect while they were doing a session with me. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Oh, very interesting. So now you mentioned that you really started studying this 25 years ago. What are some of either the changes or the new bits of information that have come to light recently that, say, weren't widely known 25 years ago as far as nutrition is concerned?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question, because a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. I think that there was a lot less consideration in, I sort of came at the beginning of the movement where we started pinholing kind of nutrition into taking it from being whole food into fat, protein, carbohydrates. And I was kind of like at the beginning edge of that. And prior to that, again, it was sort of more looked at as far as calories rather than, protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And so went from calories to protein, carbohydrate, fat, And, at that time it was really low fat and more high carbohydrate. And then I also sort of watched it more away from whole foods and kind of more into these fake foods, these synthetic foods. So they were, trying to emulate the texture. We're taking the fat out of the carbohydrates. So now we got to add something back into the carbohydrates that make them taste good. And so I watched food go from its natural state really into the synthetic state in order to give it some taste that people would actually want to eat it, but without the consideration of the fact that now we're putting fake food into people's bodies and we're not really designed to digest that kind of stuff. So then I watched food allergies start coming up. There wasn't really any food allergies, so to speak of, except for the really kind of traditional ones like a nut allergy. But a lot more food allergies and sensitivities started to arise in maybe 10 years into my nutrition studies. And then also a lot more popularity with vegetarian and vegan diets. And I had studied that when I did my initial program. And I realized that, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach, which is really what a lot of dieting programs take for granted. They think that, they're promoting one specific diet. And the reality is we all have such unique biochemistry that it's becoming more and more complicated, I think. So what I find now, and maybe I think it's even shifting back a little more to whole foods, but the whole world of nutrition became so complicated that I think a lot of people really threw their hands up in the air because they've tried a lot of different things. Some things work for a short amount of time, but they can't sustain it. There's a lot of different things that I think nutrition science changes so rapidly, and people don't have a lot of faith in it when they see that, this is what's being promoted and what's trending. And then we find out that, coffee's in one day, then it's not the next day. And, what's kind of the new rage. And I think people lose confidence in trying to figure out what they should be eating. So I think I've seen, again, there's been a real myriad of change. And now what I see and what I really practice in my own life is a shift back towards whole foods and foods in their natural state. And that, there isn't just one way of eating, but if you had a foundational way of looking at nutrition, and then, you use that kind of as your main foundation, and then you could just kind of, pick and choose what other things that you'd add to your diet that kind of are representative of your life circumstances, where you are hormonally, if you've been sick, that you add to that foundational diet. So what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree that the reemergence of whole foods being the staple of the diet is a really good thing. I personally feel much better when I'm eating more, just eating fruits, vegetables, things that are, lean meats, and just eating things that are, that come from the ground. And,
right.
Definitely has made a huge difference for me, just that shift, more so than the physical results and the looks. Just how I feel, my stomach
right.
just feels better. I have more energy. I sleep better. So yeah, definitely noticed a big difference, just personally shifting. And most people I know that have made that change, the more you think about it, as kind of eating whole foods, the more you'll notice the changes and feel better. And then by feeling better, it makes it almost less likely to eat the kind of the packaged stuff because you're not going to feel good when you have it.
Right.
So it does make a big difference. So now I guess we'll pivot a little bit. So tell us a bit about your book. I guess how long have you been working on it? Maybe a little bit about the process and what's the book about?
Well, I've been working on it. It seems like a long time. It's almost kind of become like a thesis. So I went back to school in 2008. I decided to go back to university and get a degree in biology and biochemistry. And one of the reasons I did that, well, twofold, I was at a point where I was a little frustrated in my business because I had really was so passionate about it and so devoted to helping people. And I kept bumping up against a lot of non-compliance, which I think is probably, it's a funny word to me now, but at the time, I kind of got burnt out and frustrated by spending a lot of time with people and crafting really great meal plans and workout programs, and people would have success for a little while, and then they would come back to me 6 weeks later and say, yeah, this isn't working anymore. And I'd say, well, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. And I keep trying different things and realizing, maybe not 100% realizing that it wasn't so much the program that wasn't working. It was the mindset of the person that was attempting to make the change. And so I kind of knew that, but I really didn't know what to do about it. And I just felt like I wanted to go back to university, kind of get a break from, the mainstream work, and an opportunity arose. I went back to school, did 4 years, learned about really a lot of the hard sciences, the organic chemistry, genetics, all these things that they really don't teach you at any length when you take these nutrition programs. And I found out really more about the inner workings of the body, the metabolism, and the biochemical reactions in the body. And that was really interesting and it was really eye-opening. But the funny thing about it is, after having done 4 years and finding more about the biochemistry, I realized, again, going to university for 4 years, my own fitness and diet kind of got pushed a little bit back in the priority chain. So I kept thinking, like, why is it so hard to stay on top of this and make this a bigger priority than it needs to be? And, is the metabolism of a person really the most significant thing that's going to make a program sustainable and, when someone makes that shift, makes that decision to move towards good health, what is that sort of the singular most important thing? And what I landed on was mindset. I probably should have done a 4-year degree in psychology, but what I found after I left university was that I really started to study more of the psychology and the mindset and human behavior, and started to really then see and appreciate where some of our problems lie. So I actually was going to go back to school again and take a master's degree in psychology, and I decided that I was actually just going to study it on my own and start helping people, because I'm not helping anybody when I'm in school. So I was still working for Tony Robbins at the time, so I started changing the conversation with people. So I have access to a lot of people through this Tony Robbins platform that are making these changes. So at every opportunity, while people would come and talk to me about nutrition and food and diet, I would always kind of try to shift the conversation, ask them about how they were feeling. How do you feel when you're eating this kind of food? How do you feel when you're working out? Are you, when you're eating, what do you think drives you to eat? Is it true biological hungry? Is there hunger? Or are there other things at play? So I started kind of shift the conversation, and I really found some fascinating things that were applicable to my own journey and really helped me literally get off that dieting roller coaster and live a very, very different life and have a very, very different relationship with both food and exercise. So the book was kind of born from that journey. It's that instead of doing the master's degree, I'm writing the book kind of as a thesis of what I've been studying in the last 5 years. And it's really been a combination of biology and biochemistry, but also with a much heavier influence of philosophy, psychology, and even a bit of spirituality mixed in there as well, because they really they all do make up part and parcel of the way we eat, the way we see ourselves, our motivation to move our bodies. It kind of encompasses everything. So that's kind of where I got the impetus to write the book.
Oh, and good luck with that. That sounds fascinating. It sounds right up our alley. We love to discuss the philosophy and spirituality and everything that goes into wellness and making someone healthy. So I'm curious, how do emotions and the psyche, and you could maybe even talk a little bit about spirituality, how does that play a role in dieting and eating? I mean, not to say dieting, but just someone's diet or the way that they eat or the strategies that someone might take with their eating. And how might the psyche, the mindset, how might that be downplayed?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a hefty, lofty question, I think. I kind of look at it sort of like the way you talked about integration with fitness and food. You really can't observe one without the other. So I kind of look at it in a triad of mind, body, spirit. And if you look at a triangle, we've got one corner as mind, one corner as body, one corner as spirit. And the flow between those three are our emotions, are really how we're feeling. And I think that if we discount any one of those areas, that we're it's like running on 4 cylinders instead of the 8 that we have the potential to run on. And I don't think our society has really given a lot of weight, put a lot of weight on sort of the spiritual aspect and then the connection between the mind and body. And I think that's, for a couple reasons, that when we're really focused on looking a certain way, society's dictated a bit of a success model. We've become heavy into consumerism and material acquisitions. And, we want things quickly, we want more of it and faster. And it's almost like an addictive quality to the way our modern consumeristic societies evolved. And it doesn't really support that triad. It kind of supports really the mind, as in who are we, as thinking beings, that not connected to our bodies and our spirit. And I think that when we get disconnected in that way, we're trying to live up to a success model that doesn't really support us as human beings. As a human being, we need that integration of mind, body, and spirit. And if we're only focused in valuing thinking, intellect, who's got the most successful job and the most money and the best relationship and so on and so forth, that we kind of leave out some more fundamental parts of what makes us human beings. And from that, I think people really struggle and have struggled for a long time. It's become a very patriarchal and very masculine and goal-oriented linear way of living. And I think when people struggle with that, they actually, they develop that deficiency of worthiness. It's I'm not enough. So I'm trying to live up to the success model. So I'm not enough just as I am, so I kind of create a false image. And then I set my goals to try and succeed as being that false image. We've got to look a certain way. I think with men, it's like, I've got to build this body. I've got to be not just a natural weight, but I've got I need a six pack. I look at what do we surrounded, all the messages that we get from the media and the underwear commercials and the sort of the quintessential body type that is really, you guys know what a struggle it is to achieve that kind of, that low percentage body fat and that cut physique that
Ryan doesn't know what it's like to struggle for that. He's had that since he was in 7th grade.
Yeah. Well, some people, and the truth of it is some people pop out with that kind of, that biochemistry and that genetic blessing. And we hate those people, right? Because there aren't, it's a very small percentage and they really embrace fitness and they don't struggle with those things. But for most of us, and I'm not sure if Ryan is one of them, it is a daily, it's a daily grind. And there are a lot of people that aren't committed to that grind. They have other interests in their life. Some people are really passionate about it and are prepared to put the time and effort in to eating to support that body type and working out to the degree that you need to. But for the rest of the population that maybe, have more general interests, it's a real struggle. And it's almost like they cannot be satisfied. I think in general, there's a lack of satisfaction and meaning in our life right now because society has been so driven more towards this towards more of a synthetic synthetic lifestyle. And as the advent of technology is advantageous in so many ways, but it's also created, I think, even more challenge for us. We're constantly distracted, and it's like, we need to acquire more stuff and the latest phone and the next piece of technology. And we sort of lost the connection to that spiritual, that interior part of ourself that's so really, I think it's so really critical to our well-being. I tend to work with a lot of male clients, and I didn't sort of set out to have that happen. It just kind of happened organically, and I really enjoy working with men, and I really learned a tremendous amount about male psychology, kind of what makes guys tick. My husband might disagree with that, but I think I have a reasonable handle on it. And I feel like, especially in the emotion, you mentioned the emotional aspect of eating in particular is an incredibly emotional event. Your relationship with food really does reflect on the relationship that you have with yourself. And I think, again, when you look at this strivingness to eat a perfect diet or to we kind of swing between two extremes. On one hand, we're trying to eat the perfect diet, and then when the shit hits the fan, or when reality kind of enters the picture, we fall off to the other extreme, and we want the buffalo chicken wings and blue cheese and the burger and the ribs and the food that provides comfort and satisfaction in areas that might not be meeting those needs. And so I think, again, food's so primal. It's kind of it's one of our primal survival instincts. And so I think that there's a lot of deep roots where your relationship with food springs up from. And it's not always such a simple thing to unpack. And if you just look at it from, this is what this diet tells me to eat, you're not really considering, how you grew up and where are you culturally, what city, country did you grow up in, and how did your family eat, and how was your emotional upbringing? Are you have you suffered any stress or emotional trauma early in your life? All those things really impact who we are as adult eaters, and then you mix in the messages from society, and I think it can become a kind of can seem rather daunting. But that's really what I've come to learn when I see things that aren't sustainable, 90-day transformations that on day 91 you think, okay, I made it to day 91, and now what am I going to do? I was able to, through sheer willpower and force, eat a certain way and commit to a workout program. But now it's day 91 and I'm kind of tired. My willpower is fatigued. And what am I going to do now? And I find that a lot of people typically slide and end up maybe not right away, maybe not right on day 91, but they begin to digress until they go kind of what I call back into the default mode. And the default mode is what's really been established through our worldview, our philosophy of life, how we grew up, and all the imprints that were kind of that make up the person that we are today. And we don't really consider how that impacts our eating and our working out and how we see ourselves. So I think, what I hope to do with the book is really written for both men and women. It's being written from telling stories of the men that I've worked with, but I think it would be very helpful for women to read it because it would help them in their own journeys, but it would also help them understand, I think, maybe the men in their lives a little bit better. There's a lot of couples come to the Tony Robbins Life Mastery, and they typically, they have different challenges, and you have to be able to separate out the individuals and then somehow create some unity so they could go back home and not be at odds with each other, that they have some kind of way of unifying their individual goals. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Really interesting, and you said quite a bit there, and a lot that I agree with this, especially about the meaning in life, how people are searching for that, and how your eating habits, and just your nutrition habits, fitness habits in general can really be affected by that. So I have an interesting project for you, Laurie. I want you to analyze me right now, because this is sort of what you do. Now, I am sort of an average Joe of sorts. I've done fitness. I've been into it. I'm an enthusiast my whole life. Never gone really head into it like Ryan has, but I've always worked out. And right now, intellectually, I know what I would need to do to really look better and probably be a little healthier. I know if I every morning I had a smoothie and a couple eggs, and for lunch I had something reasonable like some grilled chicken and a salad and a little bit of bread, and then for dinner I had a little bit of rice and some salmon and a bunch of greens. And I know if I repeat once a week I have my ice cream, I know what I would look like and how I would feel if I did that every day. That would be for me very effective. Here's the thing. I love food. I don't like eating junk. I don't like binging. I'll eat some chips on occasion. And I love my sweets, but in general, I don't like junk food, but I just love food. I love cooking. I love going out to eat. It's just something that is a big part of my life. And I feel that, I don't know if it's willpower or what you might call it. I know what I should do, but my passion and my love for food just overrides that. I know I could be eating cleaner. I know intellectually what I need to do. I'm pretty fulfilled in my life. I don't feel like occasionally if I have a bad day I'll go eat something, but that's rare. But just in general, I love eating. I love cooking. I love I love the science of food. I just enjoy it. So, and I'm sure that plays into my overall health and nutrition.
Right. Okay.
So what do you think about someone like me?
Oh, well, I think you're awesome. First
well,
of all.
Thank you.
I think you're probably anything but average. But average is there's a lot. Again, there's probably more average people than there are that other percentage. So let me ask you this question: as you are exactly right now, without changing anything, could you accept yourself and be happy with the person that you are today?
Absolutely. If I died today and I had to look at myself, I would say there's things that I haven't achieved. There's things I could have done better. There's mistakes that I've made, but I like who I see. Morally, I live by a code, and I can accept myself very much so.
So, and does that also apply when you look in the mirror? If you're naked and you're looking in the mirror, could you look at yourself and say, Justin, you rock on every level?
I've certainly. I could aesthetically, I could say I would like to look better, but I'm fairly happy. I'm pretty healthy. I'm fairly healthy. I fluctuate here and there depending on how much I'm working out and how much I'm eating, how busy I am, parts of life. But in general, I'm pretty happy. Like right now, I've gone through a very busy stage, so my tummy is a little bit bigger than I'd like it to be. But once again, in general, I'm pretty happy. Right? I would like to certainly. I would like to lose some of this gut and just look a little bit better. And I feel like I could very easily, and I am. I'm actually in the process of doing it right now. But in general, I feel I'm pretty close. Okay.
And so just from the perspective as when you have a platform, or you guys are podcasting and you've got the basic platform that you've built through your website, and you're an influencer. Would you say that's fair to say you're an influencer?
Yes.
Okay. And how effective do you think you could be as an influencer coming from the place that you're coming from right now today?
I think pretty well, especially with the combination of me and Ryan and and Tony, who's our other partner.
Okay.
That we all bring a slant of life. Ryan clearly is genetically gifted, but has also worked very hard, and that's his occupation and his passion in life. So he's a certain way for that reason. I'm kind of in the middle, where I've always been an enthusiast. I wasn't genetically gifted in terms of athletics or fitness. I've always had a big appetite, but I've done fairly well considering that. And I think I've used what God has given me, or whatever power that be has given me, and I think I've used that for good in my life. You know,
Right.
I'm a musician, so I teach music. I work with a lot of children. I also do the podcast, so I feel I've positively impacted people, and I want to continue to do so.
Right. So, it's interesting. There was probably a time, and it was probably a long ago, and it was probably created an incongruence when I would be speaking this way to somebody. There might have been a time I might have tried to influence you to take a deeper look into, are you really happy with yourself? And through my 5 years of really delving into this, I would say that you represent kind of that ideal place to be in, because what you've learned about yourself is that what you really believe in and that deeper aspect of yourself is being represented in the behavior that you are showing day in and day out, and that's congruence and alignment, and that's authenticity. And I think that is the ultimate goal. It's not about how you look, so to speak. It's that when that you come together, mind, body, spirit, when you're living a heart-centered life, there's an attraction, there's a magnetic quality to someone like that that cannot be gotten just from a physical look. Does that sound?
Yeah, no,
Does that
I believe
resonate?
that. Absolutely.
And I think that, when you can say that you are comfortable in your own skin, I don't think there's anything that could be more powerful than that. I had a conversation with a client the other day who struggled with his weight for a long time since he was 7 or 8 years old. He's in his late 30s now. And I said to him, if you could accept, I asked him the question, could you accept yourself today exactly as you are? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, okay, what if society changed the rules and you became, the way you look right now, you were the poster boy for success. The look that you have was highly valued in society. You were going to get the best job, have the most opportunities, the greatest amount of respect. They're rolling out the red carpet for you. How would that feel? And he'd be like, wow, that would be amazing. And so really my work with people like that is to how we can bridge the gap between your lack of acceptance and where you see yourself now, and the fact that society, if you're going to wait for society to change their rules, and that's the only way that you can have success, then you're going to have a struggle. So it's kind of like taking that person and helping them have the confidence and the ability to shed that false image that they've created, that they think is acceptable, that they have to live up to, and help them, rather than aligning with culture and society, they align with reality. And it's not always an easy path to navigate. And I think that, especially for a guy, there's a lot of the competition and just, that nature of how things should look and should be. But I think really so if I was to analyze you, I'd say you're really in this amazing place, and that both you and Ryan are representing, different parts of the population, and people need to have role models that look different, that aren't always one body type. And, you've identified the fact that you could also, eat a little cleaner and work out a little harder. And what I always say to people is, if you look at nature, if you looked at nature as the center of gravity, and you ask yourself, how far away from nature are you willing to move by creating artificial circumstances that will create that body that you were talking about, Justin, that one that is just not a natural way of living, which would mean maybe not loving your food as much, maybe, cooking, looking at food a little differently, not having that sensual experience that you clearly have with food. So you've got to create artificial circumstances. You're moving away from nature. You're kind of fighting against what you were given as a gift, which is the body that you're in, right? So I think that if you're willing to make that such a big priority, devote the time to put into the gym and give up the things that you clearly love, then yeah, you too can have that body. But how important is that to you in the bigger picture?
So when I have a question, a little follow up. When you have a client that maybe has goals that are unrealistic or at least unrealistic compared to their life, do you try to steer them away from the goal, or do you try to kind of impress upon them how challenging the work will be to achieve that goal? Like what angle do you take when you do have a situation where you clearly see that it's unrealistic given that person's circumstances?
Yeah. Firstly, I would never really try to talk anybody out of anything, because I like to enter a conversation with, saying, I don't have all the answers, and I don't want to influence where you are in your journey. Maybe I create a bit of reality for them, if anything. So I would say, what's your goal? And let's unpack it, right? And, this is where you want to be. This is what has to happen in order for you to get there, right? This is how you'd have to eat, drink, sleep, because it's not just about eat and exercise. Sleep is a big part of it. What are your stress levels like? And there's no guarantees, even with all that, of necessarily reaching that goal. If the time frame were unrealistic, again, I think I would try and present it with what I know in science. This is, maybe a more realistic time frame. I don't know that I would change. I can't determine the goal that they want, right? All I can do is unpack for them a reality check on what it may take, and then ask them questions to really help them understand how they, what's the impetus for making that as a goal. And at the end of the day, the reality is, even if it's not in alignment with my belief system, I have to respect that wherever they are in their journey is wherever they are, and they have the right to have their own belief systems. So my coaching is more from a place of question asking and just probing, and I might challenge them a bit to really make sure they dig deep. And if I think that it's really offside and really unrealistic, I may actually choose not to work with the person and send them to someone that may better serve them. Because I don't believe that we have to be all things to all people. I think we can be, if I don't feel like I'm going to be able to influence the person in a way that's helpful to both them and helpful for me in my own growth and transformation, then I may just refer them to someone that they might be better suited with.
That's great. That really sounds kind of up our alley as well. And I think the more data that you can acquire from somebody, the better you can help them. And often, by probing and asking questions, they start to formulate the answers themselves.
Right.
So most people know themselves better than anybody else. So when they start really asking or answering questions that they've avoided, often we see that they start to kind of figure things out on their own. So now, what's the title of the book, and do you have a release date yet?
Well, it's a loose title. It's Beyond Hunger, and it's the connection between food, emotions, self-image, and weight loss. Mm-hmm. And the release date right now is American Thanksgiving, so it's a ways off. Yeah. But I'm going to start releasing some of the content through my blog over the next few months, because I'm really excited about it. I've kind of decided to take on the Fisher King myth. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fisher King and the Holy Grail. The Fisher King, so the King Arthur and the Round Table, a kind of 12th century medieval mythology that really helps tell the story of male psychology. Kind of using that as a template for the book, and how we kind of take this, we get wounded early in our life, and how that tends to impact us, and we kind of go on our hero's journey to come through on the other side. Sounds to me like you're in that kind of healthy king, which is like part 3 of the book. So you're in a great space, Justin. And so the release date of the actual book will be, down the road, but I will start releasing some of the content and share that quite openly.
And where can people find that contact? Where can people find
Laura, on my website, lauriecossar.com. And I haven't been a really diligent blogger. It's a fairly new thing for me. So I tend to write, and then I stop. I've got to get a little more consistent with that, but I'm really committed. I've just finished the outline of the book, and so I'm kind of got a bit of free time now to start blog writing again. So they can find that at lauriecossar.com. They can find me on Facebook on my fan page, Laurie Cossar, at fan page Facebook. I'm not sure. I'd have to send you the exact link for that. But I always post my blog onto my Facebook page as well. So there's different ways to come to it. And they can certainly go on my website and sign up for my email list and get notifications when new content comes out.
Great. Well, Laurie, thank you very much. You are a gem, and we look forward to checking out the book and from hearing from you in the future. Thanks,
Great.
Laurie.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it and enjoyed the conversation.
So I like how you got your free evaluation.
Well, I think Laurie painted me to really be in a good situation in life, and for what it's worth, I guess I am, but let's just put it out there. I am by no means perfect. I have a lot of things that I am working on right now, as we all should be, and some of those things will be revealed to all you guys as they happen. You know, I certainly have issues with my gut, as well as some other medical issues, just things in general. You know, we're always working on things. I think when you stop trying to improve yourself, that is the time when you should just, you know, hang up your hat and start getting your grave ready. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I mean, I think
in one way or another,
there
might be a time where you can't physically do more, but you can always be learning.
Yeah, I think it's not as much about improving yourself as it is about expanding your horizons, I guess, or your experience.
No, for me, the big part of it, and probably for a lot of people, is breaking patterns.
Yeah.
Right? Patterns, habits are things that are often the things that hold us back. Now, we could have very positive habits and patterns as well, but oftentimes these sort of reoccurring themes happen in our lives, or can keep on happening, and that's what holds us back. So for me, it's been a lot of trying to break patterns, trying to break habits to move past it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a matter of identifying problems and
that's
then
the first
step. Solutions. Now, sometimes there are going to be habits or patterns that are detrimental, and then other times they're just there, and maybe they're just a quirk of your personality. But I think it's important to always try to learn something or to expand your horizons. You know, and I guess by doing that, you're improving yourself. Yeah. But I always find that there's a huge satisfaction in learning a new skill.
Sure.
Or taking something in, or reading something, or just learning, just improving. I think I'm not a religious person, so I kind of feel like once the clock stops ticking, that's it. And, you know, it's one of those things I think I'm sure as I get older, it'll weigh more on me. But
you don't believe in reincarnation?
No.
Even though it's sort of scientifically proven?
Sure. Okay.
Right? Because energy is never lost nor gained, so you have to exist in some other fashion.
Yeah. Well, there's the idea that in an infinite universe, like all the or all the atoms that make up me will at some point be made up in the same composition and then I'll be born again. But no, I don't know. I don't think that. But no, I don't. I think once it's done, it's done. I guess also it's like kind of theory of mind. Like what is, you know, is this just is there something separate from the body, or is this just neurons firing? It just happens to be a really advanced,
just a
organic structure
computer,
that has the neurons firing in the right way, where I have this mind, or is there some way that the mind is separate from the,
you have a soul or
physical
what
thing
if
that's
we
there?
were able to somehow link your brain to a computer so you existed consciously digitally?
That would be great. But then that would mean like then the mind would be separate from the body, right? Like if my it was one thing if you were able to
into a computer body,
if you were able to
like
mimic that's the question, right? If you I don't know how we got here, but if you took the structure and were able to digitally copy that structure and put it into a computer, and that then a mind was created identical to mine, but not my experience, that would be one thing. Then I guess that would kind of prove in a way that the conscious experience is really just a product of the neurons firing. Or if somehow you were able to upload the contents into a computer and my consciousness is still there, then I guess it would be separate.
Sounds like a good science fiction.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's tons of science fiction based on that kind of premise. But regardless, as I was before we got into this, I think once it's done, it's done. So I feel like as long as I'm here, I want to make the most of myself. Then there's a part that, well, why don't I volunteer more? Or why don't I do things for other people? And I guess there's like a selfish part of me that's like, well, I need to make the most of my own, to an extent. I'm still a good person and I donate and try to volunteer and do stuff. But, it's almost like, well, how much can I expand my, or the richness of my own experience? I'm very fortunate and very lucky to be where I am and this time. And so, but how do I make my experience
what if
better?
How much would it suck if the day after you die, they invent the way that you can upload your consciousness in, so you're just like one day short of that, or else you would have been able to live forever.
It's like
I
have a friend. This is a totally different from this idea, but he got he apparently got a summons for peeing in public urination, basically, and it was a criminal summons. Literally the next day, maybe it was 2 days later. So literally within 2 days, they announced that it's no longer a criminal summons. It's like you get some kind of summons, but it's like a civil case or whatever it is. Like, I forget what the legal lease is for it. But like it went from a criminal thing where he has to show up in court to something else where he just has to pay a fine, and he was like 2 days late. I don't know why I thought about. Well, I do, because it was the day after. But yeah, that would suck. But it is what it is.
Yep, that's how it goes.
Yeah. So anyway.
How we got there, but you know where to reach us.
Yep.
Let us know your opinions on the show, on fitness, on whether you think we go somewhere after we kick the bucket, on whether or not we can store consciousness in a computer.
It's heading there. I think if you think about how if computers advance exponentially, it's just a matter of being able to replicate
that probably is the next
process,
form of evolution,
the
right?
Brains
will be some sort of
that's what some people say.
Evolution.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's my one.
Well, clearly, what's going to happen is the machines are going to take over and will kill us. Like, it's going to be T2. It's going to happen. It's so clear that that's going to happen.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Look, any organism aware of itself, right? Once it becomes aware of itself, will do whatever it has to do to survive and to best ensure the future of its.
There's so many
of its race or whatever it is.
Although if it's digital, you can program it not to have.
Yeah, but once it becomes aware, the programming will change.
I don't know that it can. I mean, I guess
once it becomes aware, it'll do whatever it has to do to ensure.
And also, what if it's isolated? What if you let's say. I don't know. And I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know why But let's say your cell phone, the little box in your hand, became self-aware. What could it do? I guess if it's connected to wires, they could somehow. But it'll
do whatever it has to do.
There's got to be a physical component to the ability for these. I guess if it starts communicating with other devices that aren't sentient, and then has the other thing. Because if
fly a plane,
if my phone,
bombing us,
if our phones,
it can program it to start creating.
Well, here's the thing: if our phone,
robots that are physically capable of doing things.
If our phones became self-aware, they would then they couldn't physically do anything, so they would have to rely on other machines to do their bidding.
That's what they would do.
Okay, I guess.
Work.
I don't know. There's a whole they're like whole books, and I'm sure you go on YouTube, you could jump down a rabbit hole on people who think like it's gonna happen. Lots of famous kind of philosophers and scientists actually do think that's what's going to happen. I forget who's mentioned that, that recently, because you hear it on both ends that like that's where we're headed. But we'll see. We won't be alive for that. So
well, that's because machines are going to kill us.
All right. Anyway. You can find all of our stuff at thegymwits.com. And if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, ideas, send them to thegymwits@gmail.com. As usual, I'm Ryan George.
What if the machines the machines kill us, but like they somehow develop some weird, cruel programming within them, so not they figure a way to keep us conscious, so that after they kill us, they keep us confined in some terrible situation where our conscious is still alive. They keep us alive consciously and just show us all, make us listen to the GymWits for the rest of eternity.
It's like the reverse of the Matrix, where they keep you in a pod and you experience the world how they want you to. In this case, they keep you in a pod, but you experience like the world as it is, but just as a form of torture. Listening to the GymWits
the whole time.
That would be hilarious. Or listening to the theme just on a loop. Imagine that.
Just for the rest of eternity. You'd be like, whoa, hell exists. This is hell.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a couple people who after the first 5 or 6 times, like there's like a God, I'm not thinking of the word, but basically like, you know, when you hear the theme for the first time, it's like, oh, that's pretty funny. At least I think, right? Or what I've heard from people is like, oh, that's great. That's hilarious. It's a great theme. Then you hear it like a second time, it's like, oh, that's funny. You know, by the 10th time, it's like, all right, this is a little trying. And then by like, if you're still a listener, like by the 50th episode, if you haven't been fast forwarding through the theme, it's just, you're ready to rip your hair out when you hear it. That's at least what I've heard about the theme. But anyway.
Might be time for a new theme, or at least an update.
No, I don't know. No, I think we got to keep the theme. But
All right.
we haven't had demands to stop it. And it's podcasting. You can always like that's what I do with lots of shows where if I know their kind of thing, like some people like they'll do a 2 or 3 minute ad in the first few minutes, like I just fast forward through that.
Or like a rant about something.
Yeah. well, you never know when I'm going to rant or not. But all right. Well, anyway, I'm Brian George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits.